Okay, we are back on Beast for Shell. We are looking at ways to optimize this idea into a build. We're going to look at two different versions. First is going to use Molten Strike to trigger cast damage taken. The other one is using Herald of Thunder. The Molten Strike setup is relatively simple. We have a 100% chance to ignite. We have Brink of Death, of not Eye of Innocence, which does 100 fire damage to us whenever we hit something. We have great multiple projectiles and returning projectiles on Molten Strike with Energy Leech, and the gloves give it Mana Leech. This provides us with a lot of mana, and it works relatively well. We're going to be running white tier 9 maps, and the reason we're running white tier 9 maps is because I want to see how long it takes me to run this same map on both builds. And I've had map sustain issues this league. Anyway, we have to make sure we hit every single thing, and as soon as we run into the map, we immediately probably shouldn't have hit that, but whatever. Just for the sake of having some respect for the data, I'm gonna ignore that. I'm also gonna ignore drops. I do want to kill all the rares. It's kind of cancerous. You know, it's cast damage taken. We have Righteous Fire in this build. It's relatively easy to sustain the Righteous Fire in the build. Pretty happy about that. We're using Shock Nova, which definitely doesn't help with visual clarity. We are using 2 transmuted gems. One is the one that shoots these linear beams out off the screen, which is fantastic. It's Crackling Lance's transmuted version. And the other one is that we are using the transmuted version of the... I should turn on my aura. Firestorm. To just have the Meteor. The Meteor is the last thing to trigger. So the reason why it's important that the Meteor is the last thing to trigger is because that tells me that my mana stays good. Right? If I see Meteor, then I am able to pay for all my spells. Alright, here we go. Let's get out of here. That was 1 minute 40 about. Let's change up some stuff. So, we're gonna switch out our glove setup. We are gonna put our gas and damage taken version of Forbidden Rite, which is powering some of the more powerful spells, away and into our gloves. And then we are gonna switch out a couple of jewels. And we are also going to switch out and take out Righteous Fire right now. And we're going to take out Shock Nova and replace that with Arc. We have to turn off one of our auras. We turn on our Herald of Thunder. And then we are going to run another map. Oh, white map. Let's organize our stuff a little bit. I don't want to lose this stuff. So this one is using a 155% quality, or 155% cooldown reduction, Herald of Thunder. It's only a level 18 gem. I'm still leveling it up. I have 23 quality from the helmet, from the gem itself. I have effectively a level 5 enhance, which gives a 32% increased quality, which is 55%. 50 from a ring, 50 from a ring is 155, which means that this thing triggers all the damn time. Alright. Round 2. The playstyle of this is very different. And I think that the reason why my previous setup wasn't working well was in large part because the playstyle was creating a lot of issues for me. And, you know, just to stay fair, we are going to kill rares. And the damage on this is much lower, right? We do not have Righteous Fire. So that's a huge hit on our damage. We also do not have the additional aura. The tree also isn't optimized for what we're doing here. What? Flash on, yeah. So there's definitely a substantial damage hit. And on top of that, I think we got a little bit unlucky with the layout because we got a vile side area, doesn't matter. But the nice thing is that we no longer have to run up on packs to start hitting them. We're not gonna chase it that. Right, we can literally just walk to the maps, everything blows up. We can flame dash through some stuff. Click the strongbox on the other ones, so why not? And even with the lower damage, my expectation is that the actual DPS, as far as what we're dealing with, is going to be much more reasonable than in the other build. The other thing that you see is there's fewer meteors. Because there's fewer meteors, I know I have mana issues. Right? So there's still some work to be done to optimize the mana. I believe that was another 140 some seconds. So it's roughly the same speed. The biggest difference is that we don't have to run up to people and be at ground zero of lack of visual clarity, and we can run around. So let's talk a little bit about the setup itself. Ascendia Sanguis, Fantastic Claw. It allows you to keep Energy Leech well on full Energy Shield, which is very important because we have massive amounts of Leech in this build. It's also a Claw, which allows us access to an extra 10% Energy Leech. Beast for Charl, most important thing on here is 99% increased energy recovery rate. This affects your leech, this affects your regen, it does not affect your instant leech. But both of those numbers are very important. Which means that normally the leech cap is 10% for energy shield. With Ghost Reaver it's 20%. Effectively, because we double it, it's like 40%. And we're pretty much at that cap at all times. We're using Replica Volker's Guidance. The reason we're doing this is because it adds chaos damage and our chaos damage can ignite. It adds flat chaos damage. It doesn't say to spells and attacks. This is very important because getting ignites off of our Herald of Thunder is difficult. If you add damage to spells and attacks, Herald of Thunder is like, yeah, I'm neither. So that means that we are taking damage from our Eye of Innocence and 2 Storm Secret Rings. But we are not sustaining our mana right now. Let's take a quick look at this passive tree, because the passive tree is not fantastic for what we're doing right now. We have Finesse. We pick up this Claw wheel because it's on the way for 10% instant leech. We have some mana leech, that's already 3 nodes that can be going away. We do pick up natural remedies because flash sustain with some of these flasks is difficult. We have multi-shot, this entire wheel can go, so that's 7 nodes that we can cut right now. I mean, we still need 10% instant leech, so we'll ignore that. So that's 7 nodes that we can redistribute on the tree. We are taking Life Energy Shield, Pain Attunement for low life, Crit, Ignite Chance Wheel, 100% increased damage against ignited enemies, everything ignites. The Power Charge Wheel, because we got massive boosts in this version of the game. We pick up 1 little node of life recoup. That is just to fill up our life. The reason we're doing that is that it allows our life to be present for one-shots. Right, so with reservation and everything else, our one-shot hit pool is about 4,900. Without putting this in, our, we lose 500 some odd from our one-shot life hit pool. Is this worth it? Yeah, maybe I'll switch it out and change it up. I'll have to re-optimize for the Herald of Thunder version. And then just all the power charges. The way we sustain things, we have absorption charges equal to our power charges, which is like 9. There's +1 here, +2 there, 3 from the tree, 3 from base, so that's 9. Which means that we get a absorption charges is 12% elemental recoup. 9 of these is 108% of elemental damage recouped as energy shield. Recoup is affected by 99% increased energy shield recovery rate. So that means that we get roughly 216, let's call it 210% of elemental damage recouped as energy shield. So as long as our pool is big enough and we can survive the big hits, the recoup is getting insane for sustaining. You're really only worried about one shot at that point. We are also running Relic Caches and Patience. Let me turn off the title. Relic Caches Impatience is bonkers. It gives us effectively 9 power charges on top of what we had before. Which means we can go crit. Right? We're no longer doing elemental overload, we're just better off going crit, which is nutty that we can make that adjustment. Power charges are coming from Harmonic Spirit Shield, which gives us a power charge, 20% of the chance whenever we hit enemies. We hit enemies a lot. And now we get 140 some odd increased spell damage, because that's what Relic Ashes and Patience gives us. It's big boost. On our castle damage taken, we have a level 1 castle damage taken with 20 quality. This is important. It has Spellblade support, because we want lightning damage on all these things. We have Wave of Conviction, which gives the exposure. And it has Forbidden Rite. When the Forbidden Rite triggers, it gets us with the self-harm damage up high enough to trigger our level 8 20% quality castle damage taken. Also with Spellblade support, Arc, Crackling Lance of Disintegration, which is fantastic, and Blazing Salvo. A lot of these things have high quality, and the reason that these things, well, Arc doesn't, but a lot of these things have 23 quality. I don't need them to be level 21, right? There's no value because I can't even trigger level 21 gems, so I'm just buying 23 quality gems, and the quality bonuses are much more substantial this league, which means that this is a far more powerful ability. We have another Spellblade support, Ball Lightning, Firestorm of Meteors. The reason Firestorm of Meteors is last, even though it's a really good ability for this build, right? It has 370% effectiveness of damage. It's really nice. The reason it's last is because it's a good visual indicator to show us, are we keeping up our mana to always trigger the spell? This is the last spell in all my trigger setups. So if I have enough mana to trigger my Firestorm of Meteors, which I definitely do when I have my attack-based version, but I definitely do not when I have my other version, that means that I have enough mana. My mana pool is 525, which is fine for this version. For the other version, it is 721. Because we are using Chavron's Revelations to for the regen, energy shield regen, which also allows us to have Righteous Fire. So yeah, I think I'm going to do some little bit of respecking and go forward with the Herald of Thunder version of the build. I think it is more potent. I think that I need to find more of the jewels like this one, which gives us energy shield and 3% of damage taken recouped as mana. Damage taken recouped as mana is hard to come by. There's 10% on the mastery. There is 10% down here, but if we grab this 10% as an anoint, we lose out on the 4% of life regen on low life, which effectively, because it's doubled because of our chest, is 8%. 8% is a lot of regeneration. It's kind of hard to say no to that, but we may have to make adjustments if slapping in one more of these jewels with 3% doesn't do the trick. We can put one in here right now. Oh no, we can't put one in there. That's an important one. It has a bunch of life and energy shield. But we can replace this guy as long as we have some chaos resistance on it. And then we have 3 of those. Hopefully that's good enough. We'll find out. Other than that, leak's great. Been sick. Work's been nuts. Haven't had the energy to really record anything. My melee build that I started with was fine. Oh, and here we have chaos resistance and increased strength. My strength is an issue and chaos resistance is an issue. Yeah, biggest reason I haven't been doing much is I started out with a melee character, realized I hate playing melee. One of the big issues I found with going up the tiers in maps is that the attack-based build sustains fine, but at some point you hit the one-shot threshold. And the only way I could like beat rares is to go toe-to-toe and just hold down my attack and hope that they die before I die. That's not a fantastic way to play the game after a while, because the death penalty gets too high. But yeah, we'll cut this wheel, probably replace it with this wheel. I mean, there's no reason not to do that. And cut this, cut that, cut this whole thing, cut that. Probably take up this one. Yeah, probably that one. It's probably better. And then more energy shield, just to increase our sustain there. And we'll probably pick up this crit wheel as well for more damage to kind of offset the fact that we're losing Righteous Fire. We might be able to run Righteous Fire off of this, right? This says every 4 seconds regenerate 30% of energy shield over 1 second, which is a lot. But every 4 seconds is not a very exciting number. It just means that we can sustain it in between fights. But that might still be fine. Right? Because once the recoup engine is going, the fact that we are burning a bunch of our life due to Righteous Fire, like, who cares? We have a lot of recovery happening all the time. So might be able to still face Righteous Fires in which case, you know, the difference between those two builds, Righteous Fire with the aura is probably like 60-70% more damage on the attack based version. And the timing of the 2 runs was roughly the same. Right? And the reason for that is that even though the other build has way less damage, and of course like the map level is low and all the other shit, is that I don't have to run up, attack, have the ball bounce out, and have the balls bounce back in. That interaction is awful. And running up on packs to attack, I mean, I don't have the defenses for that. I don't have any armor, I don't have any evasion. I'm just getting blown up by projectiles. So you have to like circumvent things and then figure out where to attack, and then you overkill white packs all the time. It's kind of shitty. There's definitely a lot of clunkiness to it that I don't think the Herald of Thunder version has. So I'll continue with the Herald of Thunder version. Couple of other updates. One thing that people mentioned was with Wild Strike. Why my Wild Strike was bad was because it did all the different elements. Alright, so let's look at Wild Strike. This is a basic Wild Strike. It's the same as the other one, of Wild Strike of Extremes. It does 100% of physical damage converted to fire, cold, or lightning. Alright. Let's look at Elemental Hit. Elemental Hit only does damage of the chosen element. That line is not on Wild Strike. Which means that you're not getting rid of a third of your damage when you're using Rebuke of the Vial with Wild Strike. It's just a cheap, high damage weapon. It works fine. The reason it doesn't do much damage is because I suck at melee builds. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So there's that. I found some other builds that I played previously, which got massive boosts. First up, Stormburst. Stormburst normally has a duration of 1.2 seconds. Now you can make it 1.66 seconds, which is an incredibly big deal when you're talking about decay. Right? Our decays deal 35% more damage with the exact same setup just by having 23 quality Stormburst. It's insane. It's really good. So Stormburst Decay got a huge boost. Another one which got a huge boost is Static Strike. This Static Strike is normally you have a beam hitting every 0.39 to 0.31 seconds. But now you can stack quality on it, and this allows you to get to much lower numbers. Right? And why that's important is that if you stack quality on this, right, and right now I'm just using a enhanced at level 3, plus 2 levels because of the gem. This is set up for leveling a new character. It's gonna allow us to have another 18, so that's 70, 80, 87% increased frequency. Our beam frequency goes to 0.3-ish already just from levels, which gets us to 0.15-ish frequency of beams. 0.15 is a very important number because 0.15 is cast on crits cooldown. That means that you can ambush, static strike, and every single time your static strikes hit, it is roughly at the same cooldown rate that your cast on crit goes. And the amount of investment you need for this is nothing. This static strike adds 36.5% to the critical strike chance. So that means that if I have a 120 crit, increased critical, and I have a 40%, we're assuming like a 5% crit weapon, then I need a little bit more. 100% goes to 80, 150% increased critical. I'm crit capped. So this is a very low investment cast on crit setup. It's super viable, and once you get a Diala's Malefaction, it's really good. Right now the spell I'm looking at is Wave of Conviction, because Wave of Conviction also likes quality, because quality becomes penetration. Right, this has 29% penetration of elemental resistances, which is great, because that's a link, right? That's as good as a link. So yeah, those are some updates and other things. That's it. I have max version is probably going to be a more optimized version of the Herald of Thunder version. Cast from damage taken, and we'll see where that goes.